This podcast may contain explicit language. Give up. You can't get away from us. We're not going to hurt you. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan. Or am I?
Well, you have definitely looked and acted inhuman before, so there is that possibility that you were replaced a very long time ago.
Yes. Well, excuse me. About the time I graduated from law school, I became a unemotional, unloving, unfeeling human.
So law school is essentially a body snatcher zone?
Yes.
When does that happen? Second year, third year?
Right before graduation.
Okay, so I have that to look forward to about the end of 2027. Okay.
Yep.
That sounds good. Tonight, for our 297th episode, we discuss the sci-fi horror classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956, celebrating its 70th anniversary. Directed by Don Siegel, written by Daniel Mainwaring, cinematography by Ellsworth Fredericks, music by Carmen Dragon, editing by Robert S. Eisen. Kevin McCarthy as Dr. Miles Bennell, Dana Winter as Becky Driscoll, King Donovan as Jack Belichick. I think it's Belichick. It's spelled Belichick. Whatever. Carolyn Jones as Theodora Teddy Belichick, Larry Gates as Dr. Dan Kaufman, Virginia Christie as Wilma Lentz, Ralph Dumke as Police Chief Nick Grivet, Kenneth Patterson as Stanley Driscoll, Guy Way as Officer Sam Janzik, Gene Wiles as Nurse Sally Withers, Eileen Stevens as Anne Grimaldi, and Beatrice Maud as Grandma Grimaldi. Background for the movie: adapted from The Body Snatchers, 1954 Stories and Colliers by Jack Finney, Invasion of the Body Snatchers was released on February 5th, 1956. On an estimated budget of just over $400,000, the film was said to have grossed roughly $3 million and finished in the teens for the global box office of 1956. Critics largely ignored the film at the time of its release, but has since been reassessed as a classic of the sci-fi horror genre. The film was included on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments. Similarly, the Chicago Film Critics Association named it the 29th scariest film ever made. IGN ranked it as the 15th best sci-fi picture. Time magazine included Invasion of the Body Snatchers on their list of the 100 all-time best films, the top 10 1950s sci-fi movies, and top 25 horror films. In 1999, Entertainment Weekly listed it as the 53rd best movie of all time. Similarly, the book 4-Star Movies, the 101 greatest films of all time, placed the movie at number 60. The AFI has since recognized the film on the following lists: 100 Years, 100 Thrills at number 47, and in their 10 top 10 list, it was the number 9 in science fiction. In 1994, Invasion of the Body Snatchers was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. Invasion of the Body Snatchers has been remade several times, including 1978 under the same title, for which Dad made the mistake of trying to watch that one first, not recognizing that even though it said in all the calendar invites and everything else, it was the 1956 version. Anyway, 1993's The Body Snatchers and 2007's The Invasion. Invasion of the Body Snatchers currently holds a 97% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 92 score on Metacritic, and a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But as usual, we cannot do this by ourselves, so we bring in our newest celebrity guest, the host and creator of 1001 by 1, the co-host of Below Freezing, a Cinema Legacy poll contributor making his inaugural appearance on the show, the cinematic showstopper from the Sioux. Please welcome in Adam St. John.
That is phenomenal. I always love alliteration, so cinematic showstopper from the Sioux is just great stuff. Thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Long time coming for you to be on the show. We obviously know everybody through mutual connections, so it's great for you to actually be on with us for the first time. We obviously have a lot of people running in the same circles, but welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And spoiler alert for something coming up. Got to be introduced to a new movie for the show, and that's, I think, part of the fun of doing film podcasting is finding films you haven't seen, even though it feels like you should have prior to this moment. So yeah, excited to talk about a movie that I had no relationship to before doing this.
Okay, so that's interesting because I don't think either of us had a relationship with this version of the film, at least prior to this. I have watched none of the remakes or anything else, so I knew nothing about this. I put it on the schedule because I'm like, oh, this is intriguing. It's at a kind of a dead period of the year. We usually select most of our schedule based on anniversaries, and January and early February are just so dry because everything gets backloaded anymore for Oscars, and then obviously the blockbusters are in the middle of the year. So it's really hard to sometimes find stuff that's going to be good to talk about. And for my first time with this film, I was very pleasantly surprised. So this is another one that I would put in the list of like among the great first time watches that we've had on the show. I guess I would put it in the territory of like a Shining that I hadn't watched before we covered it on the show. I would put it in an Ex Machina that we watched last year that I was really enthused about. So yeah, definitely a good one to pick. So did you just simply pick this because you hadn't seen it before and it was a good opportunity or a good excuse?
Definitely that. And when we pick episodes for 1001, I want to pick things I haven't seen. I want to pick things that I think are going to be relevant to the conversation. But like for real, most of the times when I pick something, I pick because I own the movie and I just haven't seen it yet. And so I wanted an excuse to actually finally watch the movies. And that would also include watching the Invasion version from the 70s, which I also had not seen. So I got to knock off two birds with this exercise.
So I guess, Dad, how much further did you get on the 70s version?
I got about 20 minutes, half an hour in. I got to see Donald Sutherland and his character for a bit. And then I stopped and then I'm like, why are we doing this? It's 78. It's not an anniversary. And your mother said, well, maybe you're just not doing an anniversary. And I'm like, something's not right here. And then you mentioned that it's the 56 version. I go, okay.
Now, is it like comparable story wise? Is it basically no? It's completely different.
That version is what you do when you actually have a budget to work with.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I do like the fact that this is very simple storytelling. Like they don't put a lot of frills to it. Even the visual effects portion just looks like bodies covered in dish soap because it's just like that bubbling, oozing stuff. But it's so simplistic in its nature that it doesn't like it took me out of it for all of like 5 seconds, and then I'm like, okay, this is good enough. Like we don't need anything extravagant. This is still effective.
I totally agree. I think the simple special effects of the 50s, I mean, the 70s version, it looks cooler, but the way that they are able to encapsulate this entire story in basically 80 minutes. And I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but to me, it's like the Jaws effect, right? Where it's like not having the shark work kind of makes the movie better, you know, like not having, like the seed pods are so light and they're kind of whatever, but I mean, I think what helps in the 50s version is just how committed Kevin McCarthy is to these things being scary and awful. And like his commitment to the bit is kind of what keeps you invested going through. So I really kind of dug it for what it was.
How much of the budget for this film, and it did not have a fairly large budget, was just spent on developing a farm full of pea pods, essentially?
Well, they were all paper mache, weren't they?
I mean, how expensive is it going to be to make one of those? It didn't look like it was, like it looked effective and real.
It reminded me of a butterfly chrysalis.
I suppose, sure. But I think there were at least a good 100 of those that you could see throughout the film. Like there was an entire truck bed full of them. Some of that you could probably make over, but I don't know.
I wonder how many of them they used, because I know they sent a bunch to the theaters that were showing the film to put in the lobby. I I wonder
Yeah.
how many of them that were in production were then used to send to the theaters to save money.
Might be.
Well, and movies of this generation too, like, I mean, sci-fi was not a serious genre. So like they probably made those things and sent them off and said like, do you want these back? And they're probably like, no, just keep them. You do whatever you want to, pass them around, give them out to people who come to see the movie. Like, I don't think people were thinking that this would be, I'm something that would be remade a couple of times and be, I think, very iconic in the sci-fi genre.
I don't know if there was maybe somebody who has a better film history appreciation or understanding than I do would understand what is the lineage of this genre that isn't like the monster movies from before. Like obviously you have the horror sci-fi with Frankenstein and Dracula, and we're going to be discussing Dracula next week from the 30s. But until kind of around this point in time, like Ray Bradbury was starting to do all of his writing, but that was in novel form or in short stories. I didn't think it really had been translated to film much before this film.
I'm going to tell you that my gut feeling, I don't have this verbatim or any real source, but my gut feeling is that most of this genre was established by people who really thought that The War of the Worlds by Orson Welles was such a kick-ass thing. And then from that decided, hey, what if we were to take that concept and move it into film?
And you're referring to the radio program.
The radio program itself,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Because like I looked it up just to make sure, because this movie, for as short as it is, very much felt like an episode of The Twilight Zone, just a slightly expanded version. But that didn't come out for another 3 years after this film. So there really wasn't much in the way of like comparing what this was to just about anything else. So I guess I'm not surprised that it was ignored by the critics at the time, because they're probably thinking, what the fuck do I do with this?
Well, and tonally it's interesting because like the only I think iconic example I can think of sci-fi before this one is Metropolis. But that's it's much older, and it's I think that's a movie that's way more about like, let's look at the spectacle of what sci-fi could be. And I think the Twilight Zone comparison is apt. That's exactly where I went. And the thing I like about Invasion of the Body Snatchers more than, let's say, a movie that we covered on 1001 not too long ago, The Day the Earth Stood Still, is because there's a noir nature to this movie that I really like. The score, I mean, it does the double indemnity thing, right? Where it's like we cold open on a guy in distress and he basically recounts the story. I mean, it's got noir tropes all over it. The first time we see the pea pods, we got a Dutch angle letting us know that like shit's about to hit the fan. So I think that Invasion is actually doing more kind of within a very malleable genre versus Day the Earth Stood Still, which is, I think, kind of blandly made and a little boring. And I think it's very much going for like politics during this time and what's going on. And I think you can make the illusion in this one too, but this movie is both sci-fi and thriller horror, but also, I mean, you can't really miss the noir in the movie too. So there's a bunch going on here, and all of it uses the best parts of all of those tropes. So it just makes it like a really easy watch.
Yeah, I would say that it's very effective. I don't think anybody here would disagree based on what we've already said. But what's more terrifying in its effectiveness? The alien pods themselves, or the idea that your closest friends and family could look the same, but no longer be truly human?
Let me rephrase that question. So you're asking me what is more scary? The fact that you have family and friends emotionally distant and unloving, or pods?
I guess some people would prefer the former to the latter, but
yeah, because I'm not sure, but that latter part doesn't seem like it's that scary, since it may tend to be what I have in my life.
Well, particularly from certain portions of your family that shall remain nameless.
So pods, definitely.
And that has more to do with your side of the family than it does with mom's. But anyway, I don't know. I guess, to Adam's point, the buy-in from the actors probably sells the movie more than anything, because this is a very simple concept. And if this was like 1930s acting and we're going to talk like this the whole time. It's probably not the same film, but you get a certain level of Kevin McCarthy specifically kind of acting like Double Indemnity, that he's going to take this very seriously. He's going to be very intense about the whole thing. He's going to be terrified, and his translation of that onto screen as the audience avatar sells the film. He's afraid of the pods themselves. I think he's also afraid of losing all of his relationships. So it could be both.
Well, what's that phrase? You know, it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. Like, I think it's a real question about, like, is it worth, you know, going through all of the emotional torment that can come with, you know, friends and family and relationships, or just not feel that at all? And I don't know, you know, I mean, you know, you can't enjoy the sweet without the sour. So, I mean, I think not having those relationships, I mean, and especially like if it's like the actual pods themselves, it's like, I don't know, like just when Kevin McCarthy puts a flare to one of them, I'm like, these things are clearly easy to destroy, right? So the pods themselves don't really scare me. Just get some flares, you know, and chuck some flares at these things, and like, we're going to be good. Yeah. But yeah, I think that would be terrifying to not recognize somebody you knew the day before. I don't know. That'd freak me out.
That's fair. It's also 1956 rural California, where there aren't a lot of people around, and we were very nuclear bomb testing happy. So, you know, just drop a bomb.
Well, you know, just as we're getting into this, I mean, the quote from Dr. Kaufman: love, desire, ambition, faith. Without them, life is so simple.
He's not wrong.
Sounds like the MAGA mantra.
Well, okay. Do you have a plot summary ready for us, Dad?
Oh, sure. In a quiet California town, a local doctor discovers that residents are being replaced by alien duplicates, emotionless impostors grown from mysterious seed pods. As paranoia spreads and trust collapses, he races to warn the world before humanity itself is erased.
This summer. Thank you. All right. So what is the film about? There's two very conflicting narratives. One has to center on the plot, and then one has to do with the thematic elements.
Well, it could be anything. It could be, for example, this is 1956, anti-communist allegory, that communism causes you to become like the pod people. It could be anti-McCarthyism allegory, which is mass hysteria drives and forces people to do and believe things they don't. Or it's a critique of social conformity, the bland organizational man, or mental apathy that exists in modern society.
I think why sci-fi is so translatable to a lot of people is the allegorical nature within it, that people can kind of project their own understandings and thoughts, fears, hopes, etc. in a way that some of the other genres do not. It has such this fantastical element to it. And I personally would probably go to the latter or the last of your three elements there, because the social conformity to me is just a way that, because frankly, McCarthyism was a social conformity, communism expects a social conformity. So it's really more all encompassing there if you're going to go for the larger effect. And so that's why this film, I think, has remained a classic, is because it's got that universal theme underlying everything. From a very basic plot concept, it's a basic horror film where the guy's on the run.
Well, yeah, and that idea of having to just respond to the situation constantly, right? And I love characters like this. I love premises like this, where we meet a guy, and he's a guy, and every day he goes from place to place, and there's a new thing that he has to deal with, and that's nice because then we can really see it through his point of view. Like, I mean, he might be a smart guy, he might be a doctor, but also this is all new to him too, moment to moment. So I totally agree with you on that one. And I think that the social conformity thing is spot on too. And I rewatched this just a couple of days ago, and I think it's this idea of like, because I live in a pretty red area, and it's crazy to be like, there are people that I know that I've met since I've moved here who, like, if my car went into a ditch, they would absolutely help get it out, right? But then if they like asked me as soon as that was done, like, what's your political affiliation? All of a sudden, like, we're gonna have some problems, right? So it's weird that this like kind of recognizing your neighbor and knowing that that person is human, knowing that there is a human who lives in that house right across the street, but like also understanding that that person has basically none of the similar interests, thoughts, beliefs that I do. And that's so like recognizing somebody, but also not knowing who really is underneath the surface. And I that's what made this most recent, the second watch of the movie, I had a lot of interesting thoughts racking around the old noodle up there.
Yeah, nothing that you've expressed there is unfamiliar for either of us that are from rural Wisconsin originally. I mean, I currently reside in Madison most of the time. And Madison, despite some of its reputation, which I think is somewhat earned by the university and downtown and such, it's a fairly moderate place with a very liberal center in the downtown area. But I come from the boonies where there are a lot of, I guess, red areas in this time and place, but at one time was a very labor-centric, very blue area that is somehow flipped based on cultural issues over time. And since you brought it up, we'll just kind of go straight for it. A lot of this movie could be read through that lens, that we don't understand each other. We have an inability to connect. They are not harmful, which I found to be such a funny phrase. We're not going to harm you, but we're just going to replace everything that you are, like your essence, completely and make you into one of us.
Yeah, I had a lot of like Pam Bondi talking about ICE thoughts, just as like, oh yeah, everything's fine. We're just following protocol. No worries whatsoever. Yeah, and that's the thing is and I think you are spot on with sci-fi being very like interesting in how that can be utilized for your thoughts and feelings and being able to play it on. You referenced Ex Machina at the early part of the episode, which is another great example of that. It's just, it's you watch this at any kind of given time and place, and because we're in a world that like it, right, the verisimilitude is there, right? We haven't, as far as we all know, pod people have never actually come to Earth and taken over, we think. But the fact that, you know, we're living in a world that's close to ours, but not ours, it gives us a lot of room to throw, like, to live thematically in those moments. And yeah, for a movie that was made this long ago on not a big budget, you know, not a lot of people were expecting a lot from this movie. I mean, it holds up, which is great. And you always want that from a first time watch from a movie that's this old.
Yeah, definitely turning it on for the first time. I had no idea what to expect. I had tried to go in without any impressions whatsoever. And especially the second half of the film, once we get to the action portion of the film, like I think it has a little bit of a slow buildup in the first 10, 15 minutes or so. But once you start with the actual body snatching portion of it and they go on the run, I think this movie is propulsive. I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of the other glowing things that I could say about it. But Dad, you said that you had some very thinly veiled political affiliations with the movie. Do you want to jump in here? I feel that you've been teed up.
That's my whole point. That's why I made that quote, because when you're talking about certain elements, the core MAGA, it's people who tend to feel disassociated from the rest of society, that their lack of ambition. Hey, it's okay that you really don't want to strive and succeed. You're good. Be happy with what you are. You don't need to worry about faith. We tell you what to believe. And if you can't find love, don't worry. It's not your fault. It's the libertards.
The term is libtard, but fair enough. All right, let's go into some extra background here. Did you know this film was filmed in 19 days? The cast and crew worked 6 days a week with Sundays off. The production went over schedule by 3 days because of night-for-night shoots that director Don Siegel wanted. That's got to be like a really hectic schedule. Like, I've never been on a film set, but to do this all within basically 3 weeks, there's a lot of on-location stuff.
Well, and how fast those setups have to be, because that's the thing is my limited experience is that it's a lot of hurry up and wait. Like, I mean, so the fact that they got this done in 19 days, I mean, it's not the longest script, but that is wildly impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what the second crew was. There may have been, because they do a lot of long shots. My guess is a second crew was working at the same time the rest of the crew was doing the actual actors shooting all the long shots, the people walking around in the town, the people coming and going out of the gas station, etc., which does shorten up the script or the schedule.
All right, Dad, this one is after your own heart. Years after the film, Dana Winter received a message on her answering machine at home. The message was from Kevin McCarthy, and he said, "Hi, Becky. This is Miles. Stay awake, won't you?" Did you know? The last sequence was shot not on the actual Hollywood freeway, but on a little-used cross bridge. The cars were driven by stunt drivers. Don Siegel later said that Kevin McCarthy was in real danger of getting hit because the sequence was shot at dawn and he was near complete exhaustion. I mean, this isn't before method acting, but I guess did anybody bother to look whether he was a member of the actors school?
No, I didn't. But don't you think that to some extent, the fact that these are all, and I knew most of the actors in this film from watching all the old TV shows when I was a kid. And do you think that maybe the fact that they had a bunch of these character actors from television and movies made the film better? Because they all had to actually, hey, we're doing a movie. Maybe this is be the chance I get to actually advance my career. So if I do this really well.
Were they all on TV shows from the 50s preceding this or after this?
Well, both. I mean, King Donovan, for example, had been around forever, before and after. And then it didn't make matters much worse or better, I guess. He married Imogene Coca from Your Show of Shows. It was tied to Sid Caesar and Mel Brooks and all those. And they remained married until he passed away from cancer in the early 80s. But Don Siegel had been around for a while. I think, if I remember right, he had done like Perry Mason and some of those shows. So they were around before. And then, of course, Carolyn Jones had been in movies and then went on to be Morticia Addams in the Addams Family.
I didn't put it in the actual Did You Know section, but I guess Sam Peckinpah was part of Siegel's crew throughout the 50s. And so...
Correct. He had a small part in the film.
Yeah. So, just some interesting people. Like, I know that you obviously would recognize most of these, but I had not really seen any of these before. And I'll be quite honest, Kevin McCarthy, during portions of this film, reminded me so much of a young Powers Booth that, like, I was trying to figure out, have I seen this guy in other stuff?
The Powers Booth comparison is great. And Dana, I'm so glad that you mentioned recognizing these people, because I have something I want to say related to that for one of the things down the road. But it was a little odd to watch this movie and go, I do not know any of the people in this movie, which isn't a bad thing or a good thing. It just, I wonder if I'd even liked it more if there was somebody that I could like really, oh, I know that person from that thing. But yeah.
Did you know? The biggest problem director Don Siegel and company had with the studio was over the use of humor. He, writer Daniel Mainwaring, and producer Walter Wanger had scripted scenes with humor in them, and Kevin McCarthy said the actors improvised some during shooting. When the film was still in the work print stage, Siegel and Wanger decided to try it out in front of a preview audience behind the studio's back. Much of the humor was still in the film at that point, and the audience response went from shrieks to screams to laughter and back again. Siegel had sneaked a tape recorder into the theater so they could prove to the studio just how great the reception was to their rough cut. However, Allied Artists head Steve Broidy hit the roof when he found out and wanted to know why the audience was laughing in places. He ordered any trace of humor removed because the audience found it difficult to follow and laughed at the wrong times and the wrong moments. The studio insisted on edits because it wasn't policy to mix humor with horror. I am very curious if we could ever recover like a full version with that in it and whether it detracts from the film, but I'd be very curious. Did you know? The tunnel scene where the hero hides briefly from the townspeople was filmed at Bronson Cave in Griffith Park, famous with locals as the Bat Cave from the 1960s Adam West Batman. Of course, I had to fit that one in here.
Of course you did.
Yeah, of course. Did you know Kevin McCarthy would later reprise his role of Dr. Miles J. Bennell in the remake Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, as well as one other film? Do you want to venture a guess?
I'm out.
2003's Looney Tunes Back in Action.
So, well, one of the places you may have seen Kevin McCarthy, because I just looked it up, he did several episodes of Mission Impossible in the early 70s.
See, that was a show you showed me when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I have a very small recollection of, but I don't think I've seen it nearly as much as some of the other shows that, like, when I'll come into your office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday and see Andy Griffith or Green Acres or Hogan's Heroes. Those are much more staples.
It's my comfort food, and quite frankly, I've seen every one of them so many times. I can sit and work, and I can look up and go, oh, this is the episode that...
I think that's how a lot of people are with name your sitcom that you grew up with. For me, it's like Scrubs. For some people, it's Friends. For others, it's The Office. I mean, that's been the history of sitcoms for as long as they've pretty much been on, which kind of is why I'm shocked that we still don't have them in the same capacity right now. Like, name me the great running sitcom that's really on that people are infatuated by. I guess the closest thing we have is like Ghosts on CBS. I've heard people watch that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. And I think it's kind of a shame, but when you consider that network television comprises about 20% of television viewership right now.
Well, the monoculture is gone, which in some ways is a good thing. But yeah.
I asked my students to name some actors the other day, and they had the hardest time doing it. I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, we want recognizable sitcoms. I just want recognizable actors, and it's hard to get students to commit to that. So, yeah, it's pretty much gone.
So, did you like post pictures of the actor and like say who is this, or
no? I would just talk
names
about a movie, yes, and say this person's in the movie, and just get blank stares back at me. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, you know, and I realize I'm dealing with students who were born after like 2002 now, so it's rough. But yeah, like no recognition of who I think are our mainstays in films. They have no idea.
I just remember in 1977, I was in junior high, and my speech professor had a poster with 120 famous actors, politicians, and general pop culture icons. And I said, oh, and I'm looking at this and I'm naming, he goes, well, I have a thing. If anybody can get more than 80 of these people, you get an extra A as extra credit. And I said, okay. He says, but if you try and fail, you actually get a D for extra credit. And I said, okay, I've gotcha. And if I can get more than 100, well, we'll talk about it. Nobody will ever come close. I got 109 out of the 120. He couldn't believe it. But then again, I've always been a nerd.
Well, and that's fair. I am your son. On the first day of second semester of American history in my freshman year of college, the guy stood up at the front and said, we're going to start discussing the Gilded Age. Can anybody name me any of the presidents during the Gilded Age? And being your son, I named all of them. And he's like, well, okay, so now that Tom has done that, I don't know. It's just a family trait, I guess. Did you know Kevin McCarthy and author Jack Finney have always denied the rumor that the story is a statement about McCarthyism and communism? They just saw it as a thriller. Director Don Siegel, however, believes that the political references to Senator Joseph McCarthy and totalitarianism are inescapable, even though he tried not to emphasize them during the film. Do with it what you will, up to interpretation. But that looks like a good spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 298th episode, we welcome back 5-time club member, the host and creator of Shea Cinema, and a CLP contributor, Sarah Shea, to discuss the horror classic Dracula from 1931, celebrating its 95th anniversary. Directed by Todd Browning, written by Garrett Fort, cinematography by Carl Freund, music by Philip Glass, editing by Milton Carruth and Maurice Pivar, starring Bela Lugosi, David Manners, Helen Chandler, Dwight Fry, and Edward Van Sloan. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. All right, before we get too much further, let's check in with our guest. Adam, what is going on with you? What are you working on, and where can people find you?
Mostly these days in the pod sphere, you can find me on 1001 by 1, which is a show that I co-host with Joey Rogate, who you can find on Best Picture Cast and other things over there, and then Burt Reynolds Hobson. And, you know, we mostly pick films from the book, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. Sometimes we go off of that. Sometimes we do offshoot things, different lists, different things like that. And just kind of have a whale of a time doing it. We've just set our 7th season. We drafted that, so we're finishing up season 6. I'm not sure exactly when this will come out, but you know, we have some Cronenberg coming up. We have Cooper coming up. That's really the big thing that we're kind of gearing towards this kind of the summer is we're going to cover Clockwork Orange, Shining, and Eyes Wide Shut individually, and then do an entire Stanley Kubrick director ranking. So that's down the road. Below Freezing, here's the thing. It exists. Like you could listen to it, but we haven't recorded in a while. My wife is currently getting her MBA, and wanting to just casually watch, let's say, a movie that I've been trying to get us to do for a while now, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Just finding the time to do that is a little difficult, but it exists. I'm sure it'll come back at some point. But yeah, and so 1001 by 1, Below Freezing, you know, all the places where you can find podcasts, listen to podcasts, all that stuff. And then I guess the other bonkers crazy thing that I'm trying to organize right now is this gathering of sorts, June of 26. We're calling it The Long Take, a gathering of cinephiles in conversation, which is happening June 3rd through the 6th at the university I teach at, Lake Superior State University, which is meant to be really just like a low-key gathering of people like us to get together, chat, maybe do some live podcasts, watch some movies on a big screen, and just kind of get together. So yeah, that's happening too. I don't know. There is a form. There's like a Google form which exists, and I'm I could easily put it out there too. Maybe I'll send it to you so you could like do what you want to do with it. But yeah, it's a thing that's happening, and I have no idea what it's going to be like. I mean, I know what I want it to look like, but I have no idea what it's going to be like in execution. So that will be something.
Well, first, we're happy to put that form in the show notes as well as on the website to help promote the event. Both of us will be in attendance. I know there are a lot of your favorite Gmote guests that are going to be coming on, or that are going to be going to the Long Take, I guess is it. I'm struggling with words here to try and
just call it the gathering. It's a gathering.
The gathering.
Sure. So, but otherwise, yeah, all good stuff. We're glad to promote everything. As usual, all of our guests' attributes will be both in the show notes and on the website. If you want to find any of that there, we'll include all the social media links and all that great stuff as needed.
I'm planning the party room.
Phenomenal. Somebody's got to do it.
He's definitely not kidding on that. And There's going to be a whole adjoining room type of thing with one of the bathtubs being dedicated for like a beer cooler, but Wisconsin style.
Show you guys how to party.
Not likely, Dad. You can't party in the way that you used to.
Well, if I'm being middle-aged and toned down, I'm probably still out partying a lot of places or a lot
You
of
can
states.
definitely outdrink most of us. That's quite clear. Party, well, that remains to be seen. And yes, this is meant as a taunt to really try and like poke you to party hard.
Yeah.
It's thinly veiled. Anyway, back to the show. Best performance. We left off at best performance. Dad, who did you have down?
I have Don Siegel. I think that the overall pacing of the film, the shot selection, how it was arranged, how it was done, just was phenomenal. And obviously, it was clear that this guy had talent as a director.
I would agree. I think from a totality standpoint, yes, he didn't write the film and he wasn't his own production scout and some of these other things, but he had to control the tone, the actors, a lot of different things that went into this. And because the movie as a whole really works for me as opposed to the individual parts at times, I think he's by far the number one where I would say best performance. But similarly, and I think we'll probably bring this up in a second, my best secondary performer was Kevin McCarthy on a somewhat close second, because I think he has to be the key cog in this for the film to really go.
Well, that's great, because we're flipped, because Kevin McCarthy is mine, and I think it's the committedness of the performance, especially once they leave the greenhouse, like once they see what's going on, and it's the script is really flipped, right? Because they think they're on the other side of it, they think they're going to come through, and then nope, those pods are there. But Don Siegel is my secondary for basically everything that you said, and I think for quite effectively putting a bunch of the best parts of different genres into this movie. And obviously you talk about pacing and tone too. I mean, we have to tell people this movie is not long. This movie is, 80 minutes. Like it's paced pretty well. I mean, so yeah, I got to give a lot of credit where credit is due.
Like I said, if you can make it through about the first 10, 15-ish minutes where there's kind of that noir narration over the top of it, and you really get into the portion where they're kind of on the run, this movie goes by really quickly. Like the last 40 minutes of this is gone. So best secondary performer, Dad, who did you have?
I did have Kevin McCarthy.
Okay.
I mean, it was clear. I mean, this guy was nominated for an Academy Award for Death of a Salesman 5 years before. So he had acting credits and acting chops. His career just never took off the way a lot of people thought it would originally. But he had a long career, just not a lot of big-time stuff.
Well, I think there was an anecdote that I did find in the research where he was like really close friends with Montgomery Clift at the time, and was really jealous because he was making Raintree County with Elizabeth Taylor, this giant big budget film that was going to outproduce him. But in a stroke of fate, this is the one that ends up being the larger classic that probably is known more widely than that one.
Although I love Raintree County. I read the book in law school, loved the film.
And I think Montgomery Clift is a unheralded actor. He's much better than I think a lot of people probably know.
Yeah.
So most charismatic, this is where I put Dana Winter as the femme fatale in this movie, and she's very much supporting everything that he's doing. Like, she is an important second piece to everything that's going on, and you really have to feel an attraction to her to make sense that Kevin McCarthy is like really afraid of losing her. So her ability to kind of be really lovable and adorable in this movie, I think, is really important to the overall connection that you have with the film.
Well, and you mentioned not wanting to lose her. He lost her once, so he doesn't want to lose her again. And you're totally right. Like he has to keep her safe. Like, and if she doesn't, if he has to keep her safe because the script says so and not because we honestly feel that he wants to keep her safe, then we lose it. I think that's a very solid charismatic choice.
So other charismatics?
So Tom, you mentioned how in particular, the second half of the movie flies, and it does. And there's a lot of things that keep you going. I went with Carmen Dragon's score. I really liked it. Whenever it kicked in, especially in those moments, because there's so much where they're just running, trying to get away from place to place. And I really like it. It's both, and again, like, it's just the way that the tropes merge together. It feels film noir-y, but also sci-fi thrillery. And again, I think it's really eclectic. And I think in a different film with a different director, maybe it doesn't work, but I thought it worked. It really helped with the pacing and really keep you invested throughout.
Yeah, it has a good eeriness to it, but it doesn't feel like eerie in the same way that like The Shining does with kind of that electric form of the music. It's got a distinction to itself that doesn't feel unfamiliar with the 50s, but it definitely keeps you on edge from a tonal standpoint, but doesn't also let you kind of like out of the story at any point. Dad, who did you have?
Well, I had King Donovan. And it's simply because I love him. Everything from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, God.
He had a persona in every role he had, even in this film, where he's kind of this aloof, kind of smirking, frat boyish quality.
You were going to try and use smarmy again, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. I was trying to use what I used. Anyway, he just had that, I'm a little too cool for myself attitude. In this particular film, he's supposed to be a writer, because of course, most writers just are a little bit too cool for themselves, apparently, in most films. They're always coming across that way. So I just love him as his character in the film, and I just loved him in every bit part he did throughout the 50s and 60s, where he was kind of the same character. He just always was somebody that I liked growing up. So I went with him.
Well, that takes us to best scene then. I have 5 nominees here, and you're welcome to nominate any others. I have the body at Jack's, which is the first time that I guess that's probably the tipping point where we kind of really go into the action, where something's slightly off. I wouldn't say it's completely downhill from that moment, but it's like the first true inclination outside of the kid not thinking his grandma was quite right. Then we have in the basement, which is when he finds the body in the basement. We have the greenhouse, which we've all mentioned on multiple occasions here. We have escaping the office, and then Becky is turned, which is probably the penultimate moment in the movie. Any other nominees that either of you would like to pose here?
Like yours.
Okay. So then out of these 5, what is the best scene? I've got it narrowed down to 2.
I have the body at Jack's. The film is kind of like going up a hill, a steep hill, and then when that hits, it starts the downward trajectory on a slow path into the valley for the conclusion. And it's like the momentum starter. Everything moves in a certain direction from that point on. So that is the turning point, and I think that is the center point scene. So I think it's the best scene because it kind of lays out where the film's going for the last 55 minutes.
See, I feel the same way, but about the greenhouse scene, because I think it's our last true like exposition dump where we get the most like, okay, now we know what we're dealing with. We know where the bodies are coming from. We know we have to be afraid of these pods specifically. We know what everything looks like. So now we don't have to explain anything further. The rest of the action can evolve from here. But I could also make a case for Becky's turn at the end of the movie as being like the true moment that seals it for me. So either one of those I would feel is probably the best moments of the movie, because that flip, and you kind of know it's coming in the back of your head. When he leaves the cave, you're just like, yeah, of course, she's going to turn. But it's still shocking and horrifying when it actually happens, because they leave you in that false sense of hope for about 10 or 15 seconds where it feels like she's only just barely fallen asleep, so she hasn't been switched. But alas, she has.
Well, cool, because mine is neither of those. I love Escaping the Office. I really like that because, again, it's the watching him think on his feet. How are they going to do it? Partially, it's that scene for me because my most indelible moment, I would say, is wrapped up within that scene. But I think it's pretty crafty. It's pretty creative. I love the turn of like hearing is it Jack? That's the writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hearing his voice, and then he opens the door, and then nope. There's the psychiatrist, and there's everybody else. I really like that moment as a standalone thing.
Favorite scene for me is Becky's turn at the end of the movie. I find that to be the great payoff that we have to get to the ending portion of the film. And from everything that I knew about it, again, in the research and such, the noir elements that we've mentioned, the beginning and the ending, were tacked on after the original portion of the movie were done because the studio thought that audiences couldn't handle it. And so they wanted a more happy, uplifting ending. So they had to go back and re-record both the beginning and the end. But yeah.
Well, and that really plays into the way that the 70s version ends, because it is not an uplifting ending for the Philip Kaufman version.
My favorite scene is escaping the office. I would love to find out if the needles broke off in their legs. I mean, those needles are not like big needles, and he's just wham, he's going down into those people, and I'm like, there's no way those needles survived. I mean, they broke off, so they got needles in them. So the fact that they can recover that quickly is in and of itself ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. But that is my favorite scene because I think it is. I thought it was pretty cool the way he figured that out so quickly and managed to get it. So I enjoyed that.
Now, so are you posing as a professor of anatomy of body snatchers here? Because you have no idea the properties of that body. It could just like re-heal the needle like it's Wolverine and just push it out of the skin.
I don't know. I'm just going by the fact that they're supposedly human, except for the lack of emotion and love and, etc. So I'm going by the normal stuff. And quite frankly, when I'm looking at stuff, I look at it as an attorney with an evidentiary thing of what happened and what was the likely outcome and such. So that's where I'm going.
Okay, Doctor. Adam, your favorite scene?
Can a favorite scene also be what you think is the best scene? Is there precedence for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I also think it's the Office scene.
I think we've, in many cases, nominated best scene, favorite scene, and most indelible all as the same. If there's like one particular scene that like really pays off in a movie.
Okay, because I'm gonna stick with that, and I'll expand on to why with most indelible moment. Although I do want to say, Dana, thank you for the whole idea of like how those bodies recover. Like when you watch something like a TV show from the 90s or 2000s, and you know that a show is referencing something, but you don't know what it is, and so your cultural touchstone is just the reference and not the thing. I never knew what pod people were. Like I'd heard it in things before, and then you watch this movie and you're like, oh, they're fucking pod people because they come in. It's like, and then like it's a full circle moment. So, I guess really what I want to say is thank you for giving me this time to connect with what that reference really is. So I was able to actually circle the square on pod people.
Where did you hear that originally? That it's the full circle moment now?
I want to say now I can't remember. I want to say there's a reference in Back to the Future with like
okay,
something that either George McFly or like somebody references, but I know that there's some like a reference to pod people, probably The Simpsons. I got to be honest, it was probably something in The Simpsons because yes, there's an episode where Homer and his dad create the tonic that's going to make everybody very highly sexual, and they keep sending the kids out to do their own thing, and I think either Milhouse or somebody calls them pod people. So I think that
Okay.
might be what it is. That was your Simpsons corner of greatest movie of all time podcast.
It will be continued or picked back up when Scott Cole is on with us later in the year. All right. Most indelible moment, though, you said that you already had the escaping the office as the individual moment for you.
Well, the actual moment, like the moment where I saw it, like when I watched it in the movie, I thought this is fantastic, and it's after the police escort the people who have just gotten off the bus away. The police car comes back in, and you see all the townspeople just walk in towards that like center of a square. I thought that was amazing. And and like we already know what's going on. Like we've seen the pods, we know what's happening. But when you see just how big it's gotten, I just thought that was a really cool shot, really cool moment, and it lets you know just how uphill of a climb it's going to be for those two to escape.
It is a really great example of show don't tell, bar none, because the level and scope of which you'd have to translate that, if it's just a throwaway line of exposition such as it's now across all of town, you don't get the same representation as you do from that moment. So I agree, that's a pretty good one. For me, it's still the greenhouse, because seeing the dish soap bubbles around all of the bodies is just going to be slightly humorous for me yet. But if there is ever a moment where this is just randomly on cable or streaming or something somewhere and that scene is on, that's a great pickup moment for me. Oh, it's the greenhouse. There's like another good half an hour of this movie and I can sit down and have fun with it.
For me, it's Becky's turn, which is no matter what you do, ultimately somebody's going to fall asleep at a crucial time and drop the ball and become a pod people.
That is such a weird way for them to be the turned version, though. Like, I still don't know how that works, but it's terrifying in its essence, because everybody has to fall asleep at some point. It's inevitable as part of the human condition. And if that's the only thing that is preventing you from basically losing all human quality, man, I guess
I'm at the age now at 62 where I've had two friends from high school who have fallen asleep and not woken up. And so now I'm the thought crosses my mind, not every night, but once in a while, of just drifting off, and that's it. So I think to some people, that's probably as terrifying as you can get.
Well, on that dark moment, we'll take our second break and we'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, during the break, Gmo did a few live episodes on our end-of-year recap / season 8 scheduling, our James Bond ranking series, and our Gmo Duncan Family holiday menu extravaganza. If you missed those episodes, don't worry. Your favorite movie family is still available to view on our YouTube channel at Gmo Podcast. We are planning our next series of live episodes, including our Oscars preview again this year, so stay tuned. However, those are only available on our YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Gmo episodes. That takes us to best funniest lines. I don't think there are any terribly funny lines in this movie per se, but maybe you found a few. I will start the round robin here with Dr. Miles Bennell. They're here already. You're next. You're next. You're next.
Miles, you're a forward wench, dragging me into a dark hallway to be kissed.
That's a term that just really doesn't get thrown around much anymore.
Dr. Danny Kaufman, love, desire, ambition, faith. Without them, life is so simple. Believe me.
Dr. Miles, in my practice, I've seen how people have allowed their humanity to drain away. Only it happened slowly instead of all at once. They didn't seem to mind. All of us, a little bit. We harden our hearts, grow callous. Only when we have to fight to stay human do we realize how precious it is to us, how dear. How does that apply?
Dr. Miles, love? I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm a general practitioner. Love is for the specialists.
Yes. Becky Driscoll, I don't want to live in a world without love or grief or beauty. I'd rather die.
Dr. Miles, this is the oddest thing I've ever heard of. Let's hope we don't catch it. I'd hate to wake up some morning and find out that you weren't you.
Becky, is this an example of your bedside manner? Dr. Miles, no, ma'am. That comes later.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess a few humorous things did slip through the censors.
We're not the last humans left. They'll find out about you. They'll destroy you somehow, Dr. Miles.
Dr. Kaufman, the mind is a strange and wonderful thing. I'm not sure it will ever be able to figure itself out. Everything else, maybe. From the atom to the universe. Everything except itself.
I have two more. Dr. Miles, what do you have? We're pushing appendectomies this week. I definitely went more the humorous route.
Well, somebody had to. Dr. Miles, look, you fools, we're in danger. Can't you see? They're after you. They're after you, all of us, our wives, our children, everyone. They're here already.
Wilma Lentz, there's no emotion. None. Just the pretense of it. The words, the gesture, the tone of voice, everything else is the same, but not the feeling.
This one's short, and I guess if you spent any time in academia, they wept with envy when they read my paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do you have any left?
I'm out.
Okay, I got two more here. Charlie, give up. You can't get away from us. We're not going to hurt you. And then my last one here, as the mob chases Miles to the highway, let him go. No one will ever believe him. Yeah. Okay. So that takes us to the Stanley rubric. First up is legacy. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out, so roughly 1961 to today. The legacy of this film as shared between two equal yet separate groups, the audience and the industry, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first this time.
Okay.
For the legacy, the industry, there's a couple of principles about this film. One, the principle first is you can build or create a sci-fi horror film and do it on a very low budget and make lots of money. This film really proved that. You would not have the Blair Witch Project. You would not have several of these films without this legacy. So from an industry point of view, and the fact that it rose so as far as being a better film and being on all these top 10 lists and a cultural icon leads me to put this as a perfect 5 for the industry, for legacy. For the public, it is a film that is iconic. People know what you're talking about if you say Revenge of the Body Snatchers or Invasion of the Body Snatchers or whatever. They know what you're talking about. Most people haven't seen the film. So from a long point of view, I can go no better than a 3.5 for the public. So I'm at an 8.5 overall.
Okay. From an industry standpoint, this movie is classic to its genre, but I don't know outside of maybe the 50s and early 60s that it has a ton of contemporaries like it. Yes, there are low budget horror films, but that's kind of been the nature of the genre for a very long time. And we really didn't get that re-renaissance until probably the independent film era from about 1990 on. So I'm not sure I could translate it like to like there. Also,
we wouldn't have Roger Corman in the 60s without this.
I'm not sure that's true, because I think there's an industrial culture that created Roger Corman preceding this film. Like, this film is not by itself responsible for him being a thing. And that will take me into my next point, which is, name me any other Don Siegel movie that you can just offhandedly remember. And we also said that most of the actors in this were TV people that we don't otherwise recognize for other films.
I can in a minute. Don Siegel directed Dirty Harry.
Escape from
Oh,
Alcatraz.
did he? Okay, well then that's my bad because I didn't really do my homework on him, to be quite honest. I just
I
hadn't
forgot
recalled.
about Escape from Alcatraz, but I think he did Dirty Harry and the second film, which is During a Blank. Was that Dirty Harry 2, but something, the other subtitle?
No, well, everything in the Dirty Harry series is a different name, but I can't remember. Like Sudden Impact, I think, is the fourth one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
The second one is with Hal Holbrook.
Anyway,
Yeah, I can't remember. But I think he did that one too.
either way, but none of the actors in this went on to like larger careers in film. If you wanted to say that it helped promote them on TV, I'd be willing to listen to that. But I also don't want to make it out like there are films like we discussed last week with City Lights that are on just about every imaginable list of greatest films and such of all time. And this one is on a few, but we have to create gradations somewhere because, again, we often tend to, with a lot of our scoring, just go with a 5 on the industry if it's been recognized almost at all. And then we kind of make our bones about it in the industry portion of things, whether people have basically heard about it. So I'm going to make a point here by saying I have it at a 4 for the industry, and I have it a 3 for the audience because I think there is something to be said that the name recognition or certain things from this movie, such as Adam mentioned, pod people, are more universal terms or stuff that's in the culture. Body Snatchers is at least something like I put it on the list because I'd heard the name before, but I hadn't seen anything with the film. So as a result of that, I'm going to give that a 3, but I don't think it has quite the cultural cachet that maybe you've stated in your opinion.
Adam, it's up to you to tell which of the two of us is more correct.
Well, so with the industry, I have the same score as Tom. I gave it a 4. But Dana, I also agree with your points. I think that's very true. But I think as far as within the industry, I think Don Siegel's going to be remembered more for his collaborations with Clint Eastwood, which is not a negative. That doesn't dock the enjoyment of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So I went with a 4 for the industry. Public, I actually went pretty low on. I went 2.5. And I did that for the only real, and this is very much recognized on those critics lists and people within the industry. But I think that people actually know the 70s version more. And I think that if you were to ask a general cross section of people watching movies now, because if you haven't seen the 70s one, the ending is stellar. It's a great, perfect, downbeat 70s ending that I think works really well for the story. And then if you got people like me who didn't recognize anybody from this version, but in the other one, you've got Donald Sutherland, Nancy Cartwright, Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy is in this too. And I'm sure other people that I'm blanking on right now. And so I think it's like if you ask I wonder if you were to ask people, have you seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers? And they say yes, what version they've seen. And I wonder if the 70s one comes up more, which obviously pays homage. Obviously, I mean, there's this one exists, but I just wonder how much of the public is more familiar with the Kaufman version and not the Siegel version.
So that's going to be a 7.33 average between the three of us. Let's move to impact and significance then. Similar to legacy, this is a category divided 5 and 5 points apiece between the industry and the audience again. However, for the initial 5 years that we discounted for legacy, we are going to take that in effect here. So roughly 1956 to 1961. What is the impact and significance among the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece. Dad, since you let off here last time, I'm going to go here. I had this at a 3 for the industry. Again, for what we can tell, most critics kind of ignored this. It wasn't a huge budget film. It was somewhat passed over. There weren't any big named actors in it. It did a modest box office, although I guess we usually reserve that more for audience than anything else. I just don't think there was a lot of attention to this. It got no awards attention, which usually by itself probably knocks off a point, at least in our normal scoring. So I have a 3 on the industry side of it. From an audience attention standpoint, it did decent business. Like, being in the teens, even in the mid 50s, isn't bad. So I gave it a 3.5. I think it was a film that a lot of people saw and had some cultural sway, at least enough that people wanted to remake it multiple times and come back to or revisit the story. And maybe some of that has to do with the legacy after the fact, as people began to appreciate it. But frankly, if a movie came out in the 50s, there was no way to repeat view it unless it got reshown in theaters for several decades. So people did have to see it and appreciate it and talk about it, even in that moment. So I'm going to go with a 6.5 overall.
All right. For me, for the industry, considering this got blown off, and for that, I guess I'm going to give it my score, which I'm going to now term the fart in the wind concept, is a 1.5 for the industry.
Oh, hold on. A fart in the wind is a 1.5. What is a 0?
That is where we don't even know why we put this film on the show.
That's only happened a couple of times. And I think all of those films are in the bottom.
I wish I would. Yeah, if I wish I could have. What was the Stallone
Escape to
film?
Victory? That was one of them.
You put that on, and I'm like, did you ever see it? Because I saw it when it came out, and I'm like, why did I want to go see this? Because
frankly, there's a large swath of Stallone films that could probably fit into that.
Oh, and what was the one where he did with Dolly Parton?
Yeah, it was like a musical or something.
Yeah, where he's
trying to be a country
singer.
Yeah, Rhinestone.
Ugh. Yeah, that's got to be pretty darn close to a 0. I wish I could, if I was to grade it. So anyway,
you were very harsh also on Friday when we saw it.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but anyway, for the public, it did do well. Okay, and this is one where I wish my dad were alive yet, because he would have been a teenager when this came out. I would have loved to have heard whether he went and saw it, because he went to the movies all the time, because he grew up in Lancaster, Wisconsin, and there wasn't anything to do except go to the movies and drink, which he did a lot of. Yeah. And sometimes at the same time.
Well,
because he would talk about sneaking beer into the movie theaters. But anyway,
to be fair, you and I have both done that as well, but it's now legal, so we don't have to sneak it in.
True. Anyway, so I'm at a 3.5 for the public, so I am at a 4 overall.
Oof. Woof. All right, Adam, that leaves it up to you.
I have the same score as Tom for the industry. I gave it a 3, and I think mostly where I landed there was, I mean, yes, it did get brushed off, but they kept making movies like this, like maybe not exactly, but, leaning into sci-fi and obviously Twilight Zone is on the precipice. So we're getting close. So I gave it a 3. I definitely couldn't go any higher. This might be high. I have no idea. I gave it a 4 for the public, because I do think that people would go see these, right? Even if it was like the double side of a double feature at the drive-in, like people were watching these, like it was cheap entertainment, and kind of, Dana, like what you had said, like what else are you going to do? So it wasn't like, and it seemed like a genre that it seemed like a good first date genre. Like, oh, you're going to be kind of scared. Well, then we'll cuddle in and we'll do whatever. I don't know. It just seemed like maybe this was something that people were absorbing it at the time more. I really don't know. I wasn't around, but that's my best guess. So I don't know. I went with a 3 for the industry and a 4 for public.
So that is a 5.83 average between the three of us. In only a way when you have odd numbers of people on the show can you get to a decimal like that. But let's move to novelty then. This is a measure of anything original about the film for 5 points, and the film's execution for an additional 5 points for a total of 10. Since usually you go first on Classicness, Dad, I'm going to take the lead here. I think this is wholly original. We mentioned The Day the Earth Stood Still. We mentioned, I guess this is kind of the same era as Creature from the Black Lagoon, but those are still like monster movies. There weren't a lot of sci-fi horror films per se like this. And again, this precedes the Twilight Zone a few years later. So I do think that maybe it's not creating, but at least it's furthering a burgeoning genre or subgenre at the time. So from that standpoint, I'm going to give that a 5. An execution, I think budget is the only thing preventing this from being a full 5. I have a 4.5 here. And really for me, it's only that it's like the dish soap bubbles. Like I'm going to just take a slight half point off there. But otherwise, the acting is fairly good as far as I can tell. I mean, I've said many times before that I'm not a good barometer of what is or is not good acting. We'll leave that to the acting professor here. But I have no complaints. I mean, the technical standpoint, the production design, the rest of it, it all looks fairly good. And so I'm going to go with a 9.5 here.
All right. From originality, I'm at a 5. Perfect. Execution. There were plot holes in this. You got pods, and then all of a sudden you get a body on the table, but no pod. You've got, if you destroy the pod, do they still happen? I mean, for example, they put 2 pods in the trunk and he lit them on fire with the flare. Whose pods were they? Were they his pods and Becky's pods? If that was the case, then why did Becky turn over? Because her pod would have been destroyed.
Yeah, but the pods are not individualized. Like, it's not DNA coded. The pod could reproduce anybody that's close or nearby.
Okay, so then how did Becky turn? Where's the pod? Anywhere close to her?
I don't know.
See, so that's what I'm talking about. There's plot holes in this, all right? Script has problems. So therefore, I'm at a 4. So I'm at a 9 overall.
Okay.
On originality, and maybe I'm being harsh. I gave it a 4, and I was going off of the notes that I have here, and I think what, and maybe I just focused on, like, did the movie push boundaries, and then also, I actually really love this phrase of like a unicorn quality, and I don't know if it got quite there for me. It is very original, and I think of the movies like it of its time, I think it's really good. So I gave it a 4. Execution, I gave it a 4.5. I'm kind of with Tom. I really like everything that's kind of going on in the movie from the production side, from the design side. I think the performances are really good. They are of the time, but very believable, which I really like. So yeah, I'm 4 for originality and 4.5 for execution.
I do love great whole number math because we average out to a 9 on this one. So yeah. All right. Finally, let's move to classicness. This is really a category that's very nuanced because it's whether the film has aged well or not, the timelessness quality to it. Are there some social issues that haven't aged well? There's a lot of things that could be thrown into this category. And so we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
All right, so we start with the 6, as you indicated. Okay.
I did not indicate. So why do we start with a baseline of a 6?
Because 6 is median, but it's easier to go down than it is up. And so therefore we kind of give it a little extra weight from going at a mean of 5. Okay. 1, I give a point for the notoriety. If you mention the film name, a lot of people are going to know what it is. You can claim it to be the 70s version or the 90s version or whatever, but ultimately it goes back to the original. So I'm going to give it a point for that simply because of that.
I don't think you can based on our criteria and our tests that we've established to this point, because that's fitting more into legacy than it is to classicness, because that's general audience name recognition.
Okay, I understand that that's there, but this is broader than that to me.
Bend your test however you'd like, just like SCOTUS. You're in the legal profession. I guess that's allowed.
Okay. Now, the simple fact is that this film is a Rorschach test. And you can place it at any point in time and find relevancy to it. whether it was in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, right up to today. You can watch this film and read more into it now than with, which we did at the beginning of this. We started bringing it current. Okay. To me, that's at least 2 points. I'm going to go one step further because we went and did it yet as of the current events going on right now in Minnesota, basically. So I'm going to give it a 2.5. So I'm 3.5 points up on this, right from the sixth base. Except that I'm going to give it a half point down because I'm tired of the 1950s male savior saving the woman. And so I got to give it a half a point down. So therefore, I'm at a, let's see, a 3.5 was 9. So I'm at a 9.
Okay, originally on this, I had it +2 for timelessness because I really didn't see anything to detract from here. And I think for the most part, it ages fairly well. Like we definitely feel the same things at the same spots that we're supposed to, and I think all of us kind of took away the same things that why this is a classic. I would also say that because of the universal themes that you mentioned there in a different name, I guess, I would give it an additional point. So I'd end at the 9, but the question now becomes, do I want to give it any points down for your gender dynamics commentary? And given that you are the most celebratory of this period of time, particularly of sitcoms and such, I guess I will follow your lead and I'll take a half point off and I'll go to 8.5.
So I guess my classicness score, I don't know if I actively thought about like points up, points down, but I ultimately landed on the same score as Dana. I ended up with a 9. And I think, the questions that you ask here, I think it was ahead of its time, maybe not greatly. There's nothing that I watched that makes me cringe. I think it's still, it lands where it needs to. And I will say that as far as like playing into gender stereotypes, yes, it's the male hero, but I like that. I don't feel like Becky is useless. I feel like he's trying to protect her, but I feel less like Becky, you're in the way. Stop being in the way. Like, I feel like there are times where it feels like a team. Now, it's focused on him. I mean, it definitely is his story. We open on him, we end on him. So in one way or another, I ended up at a 9 for classicness.
And I know this is bad podcasting to just be thinking with dead air on there, but I want the good math, so I'm going to go back up my half point. I'll say it's a 9. So then we'll just end on a 9. All right, rewatchability. This is insert your own subjectivity test, 1 through 10, however you'd like to go. There are many tests that have been bandied about during the history of the show. For me, I've been trying to, over the past roughly year, go back to the original version of this category, which was much more objective, and trying to sort out different factors, up, down, or otherwise, that either you guys can borrow if you'd like, or use your own test however you'd want to go. For me, I think on a general audience, and somewhat of the rewatchability is, I guess there's twofold. 1, can I get anybody to watch this the first time? And 2, which is a point that I don't think we've ever truly made, it does say rewatchability. So not only can I get them to watch it the first time, can I get them to watch it again? It's an older film. For some people, that is really difficult to get them to watch stuff of this nature that is a little bit slower, a little bit more meandering. It doesn't have some of the same flair and the propulsive nature of modern films. But by the same token, it's 80 minutes. The short run time is going to mean something even in an era where films are 2.5 hours almost on average anymore. I think that does have something to say where people are watching basically a similar equivalent of an episode on Netflix. They should be able to get through this. I think I'm going to give it an additional point up for a kinetic second half. I think once you get into the movie, if you can get to that certain point where it tips over and it's downhill from there, that people will sit and watch the rest of this film. I think it's actually aided by the fact that it's a horror film, which seems to be incredibly popular right now and has been recognized as such. It's a moneymaker. It's apparently an awards darling right now in the last couple of years. So I think that's worthy of an additional point. The last factor I will say is black and white. Again, for some people, the sensing, and maybe some of this is overlapping with it being an older movie, but for some people, if it's in black and white, they just won't watch it. It's the same people that object to, like, I'm not going to watch musicals or, whatever else. And for cinephiles, that seems blasphemous, but it is at least a section of the public that I try and account for here. So ultimately, I have 3 points up. I have 2 points down. That leads me to a 6.
For me, this is a film. Yeah, I'll rewatch it. I may even encourage people to watch it because it is a relatively simple little film to watch. I mean, and the reason I wouldn't give it a 6 because I think I could actually get people to rewatch. Maybe I'm giving it your grandma test, which is, can I get my grandma to watch or get your grandma to watch this on a Friday night when they're living in the house in the summer?
I think so. I think you could get my grandfather to watch and rewatch this movie. The one factor I would say against it is it's not widely available on streaming. It would, like, for being a film that's obviously copyright available, it was only on the Roku channel right now. You would think that it'd be on Tubi and Pluto and all of these other places, but
except that if you do, and this is how I ended up watching it. I was writing a brief, and I thought, oh, can you get the Roku channel on street or on my Google? So I just typed it into my platform, and it came up. And I just sat and had it on the other screen, and I was watching kind of as I was working on some paperwork. And so it's relatively easy to get. You get it through your browser. So it's not that hard. You just have to look for it.
Okay,
which means that you should be able to get it any place, pretty much.
Where are you ending on this grandma test then?
Well, anyway, the point being is if I can get her to watch it, it's going to be a 6. And the reason why I didn't go up to a 6 is because I'm not sure. If you think realistically that I could, then I'll give it a 6. Otherwise, I'm at a 5.5.
I think the best way to sell her on it would be to get my grandfather to watch it, and he loves this kind of 50s sci-fi fiction type stuff. His favorite book of all time is When Worlds Collide. So
okay,
I think there is a bit of a selling point there, but make of it what you will.
I'll go with the 6 then.
Okay.
I'll go with the 6.
So we have 2 6s on the board.
Well, I love this because I think I went with, you're welcome to insert your own subjectivity here. So I definitely, I think I approach this category from the mindset that you, me, whoever, you've seen the movie, right, already. So how likely are you to rewatch it again? And I will say that, whether I'm guesting on a show or doing one of mine, sometimes, even for movies that I like, a second watch can feel like a slog. If it's a movie that you like and appreciate, but it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, or you've seen it a bunch of times, it's like, okay, I get it. And God forbid it's a shit film, right? Because then it's like, well, great, I get to watch this a second time. But
this from a man who has covered Salo on his show.
Yeah, yes, which I only watched once for the episode. But so funnily enough, I watched this for the first time while I was in Madison because I was there recently for a theater conference. And then when I knew this was coming up and I knew I had to watch it again, I actively looked forward to it, right? Part of it is the runtime, but part of it is because I'd seen it before. I was excited to see it again because I thought it worked so well the first time. So, and all of your points for it being an initial detraction to somebody, the black and white, the 50s of it, right? But I would say that's a problem of watchability, not rewatchability. And in that sense, I think this is it's such an easily rewatchable movie. So I gave it an 8. But that's based on criteria that I basically just came up with right here and now.
Oh, that's all good. As long as you can provide an argument, it all works. So that's a 6.67 average between the three of us. Finally, on this one, we have an audience score. We had an 89% for Google users and an 85% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.7. So to repeat the categories on this one, we had a 7.33 for legacy. We had a 5.83 for impact and significance. We had a 9 on novelty, a 9 on classicness, a 6.67 for rewatchability, and an 8.7 for audience score, giving us a final total of 46.53, and currently placing it on our list between Iron Man and Lost in Translation for number 136. Roughly, I think we've covered somewhere in the 260 different films over the course of the show, and so this falls pretty much smack dab in the middle. Which, you know, for our low budget with only a little bit of name recognition, yeah, I mean, I can feel it. So ultimately, if you have any commentary for us at all, you can find us on our socials at Gmote Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, Blue Sky, and as of recently, Threads at Gmote Podcast. You can find us on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmote Podcast, or at our email, greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Let's move to some remaining questions. Seems like Dad has some plot hole questions he may want to ask.
Well, you have down, or you gave us, is does Dr. Miles become one of them as soon as he falls asleep? If it was that simple, why didn't the doctor, when he came into into the doctor's office, give him a sedative? Minute he's asleep, he's a pod person. You don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
So,
one small question that ruins an entire movie plot.
I just, that's the problem I had when I've been avid about keeping up with my letterbox this year. I made that a priority point that if anybody is interested, they can find all of my reviews of everything I've watched so far this year. So since January 1 on Letterboxd, I put in all the plot problems I had with this.
Because I know people follow the show. They follow me personally. What is your handle so we can actually share this out there?
Okay, well, I don't know.
All right, well, he pulls that up.
I think it's just Dana W. Duncan.
It might be. I don't even think I'm following you yet.
It's enough variation. Let me just...
We'll get this squared away. But in the meantime, Adam, do you think that the pod people take over the rest of the world?
I think if you were to ask the makers of the film at the moment, do they take over? I would say no. I don't think that they take over the world. I think that, maybe the Santa Mira contingent didn't have their stuff together, and whatever. I think stuff will happen. As you said, we'll just drop some bombs on some places, and it'll basically suit itself out. I will just say, not to spoil the 70s version, I do also recommend that version, because I will say some of the questions related to how the hell do people turn into these pod people when they're like seemingly miles away from wherever their pod was, and that question are answered. There's a little more justification for those plot hole things in the 70s version. But I think in this version, I don't think that they take over. And I'm not necessarily an optimist by trade. So, yes.
Fair enough. Dad, thoughts?
I don't know. Depends. Do they have a paramilitary force wearing masks?
Well, even that has found it very difficult to take over a moderately sized metropolitan area. So
they're trying, but probably not.
They're trying.
I guess I have more faith in the majority of humanity is realizing the stupidity of the direction we're going.
In the original version of the movie that doesn't have the manufactured ending and closing with the noir narration and such, I would say that it is likely that they take over the rest of the world, because no one will be convinced that there are these invading species it just kind of, like any other invading species in the history of science and the world, just kind of evolves, and they slowly integrate until they basically become one with the species. But in the newer version, if they did believe him, and it seems like they do, and they basically rush in the military, we had firebombed all of Tokyo pretty recently compared to where this was. I don't think it would be against the U.S. military to just firebomb an entire town to save humanity.
And who did he call? The FBI. J. Edgar Hoover. That's who would have been the one to go after it. Just tell them there's pod people out there. And immediately, oh my God, there's people out there, pod people. We need to destroy them.
But if there's a character in the U.S. government in 1956 that is lacking on all humanity and emotion, it's not J. Edgar Hoover.
Good point. He may have seen this as rivals.
Or he had already become one. That's the thing. Like, if the pod people actually take over people in power, and that's kind of how they get the town of Santa Mira, is they get into the police force. So,
well, with Hoover, his conversion may have been implemented by his relationship with Clyde Tullison, his assistant. So,
yes, assistant, if you believe the Eastwood version.
Yeah, gotta love the hypocrisy.
And then we've already discussed my third question. So, any remaining questions for either of you?
I think I'm all good.
Okay. Well, hearing none, Adam, you're not currently scheduled to be back with us, but you are certainly welcome anytime. Thank you for being on this time, your inaugural visit with us. Please remind the people what you're working on and where they can find you.
Absolutely. Broadly speaking, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, all those places at 1001 by 1. Below Freezing is there too, but I would just say we're on a good hiatus. But 1001BY1, 1001 by 1. That is where you can find us.
Sounds good. And I definitely understand higher priorities while you're in school and all the other stuff balancing, but in your wife's case, you have children, and boy, I'm doing this while I'm single, and it's hard. I can't imagine, like, all of my classmates who have kids and stuff. It's, got to be impossible. So, Dad, did you find your Letterboxd handle finally?
It's just listed as Dana Duncan, and my email address, which is danawduncan@duncandisability.com, and that's what it's listed as.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can find it here, because asking a 63-year-old, 63? Yeah.
62.
62. I'm sorry. I'm aging you a little bit more than necessary, but a 62-year-old man to do social media in real time, is tough, no matter how much time you spend on TikTok.
Correct. Not as much as pointing out your mother kept rounding her age up to 60 over the last weekend, and I kept pointing out, so now you're acknowledging your age. And that really did not give me any favors.
Okay, so you have listed from August GoldenEye, Sophie's Choice, and Raging Bull. Otherwise,
everything's this year.
You have nothing else listed right now, publicly at least.
Well, I don't understand that.
Did you not put it in your diary or anything?
Yeah, I put it. Everything's in the diary.
Yeah.
No,
that's all there. That's how you log activity.
No, it's all there.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out for the greater public here and make sure that everybody can.
I have stuff going back into December of 2025, November of 2025.
August. You may have been something else then, because the one that's listed as Dana W. Duncan has nothing.
It's not Dana W.
Okay.
It's Dana Duncan, and because I paid for the whatever the premium or the account is.
I'm still not finding at Dana Duncan. There is a Dana W. Duncan that had stuff Oh, here you are. It's Dana W. Duncan 63. So
okay,
that's how to follow you. Okay, so now we have your favorite films North by Northwest, Rio Bravo, Blazing Saddles, and 12 Angry Men. Recent activity, your most recent film is The King of Cool with Dean Martin.
Yep.
Now,
Watched that yesterday.
I will say, you didn't apparently log this film into your letterbox because it isn't listed as recent reviews, but let me check your diary here.
I did.
Oh, no, you did. Okay. My bad.
Yeah.
All right. But I don't see a film that is about to come out that I've been trying to push you on, but haven't directly mentioned. Are you familiar with the 99-Year-Old Man documentary coming out on HBO?
Yes. I've seen excerpts and previews on TikTok. So, yes.
Okay.
And I watched an interview that Judd Apatow did based on it. Yes.
Yeah. The story tells of Carl Reiner passing away and what he did during that day. I feel like you're going to have a moment there. But any other remaining thoughts for the week?
For me, I happen to take a
No,
moment.
the other random body snatched guy that's sitting in the corner.
You've, in multiple episodes over the last several months, used the term oeuvre. Okay.
Yes.
I actually looked it up and got the actual pronunciation in French, and you're saying it wrong. It's
Okay.
oeuvre.
I'm not
So,
French. I'm good.
It's so if you were going to be talking about the body of work in the film industry, it's oeuvre cinématographique.
Okay, and what vodka did you have to do the Russian pronunciation of French there?
It's oeuvre cinématographique.
Again, you sound very, very Russian in your pronunciation,
Okay.
but okay.
Well, I don't speak French. I only
Neither
speak
do I.
a little bit.
And I'm still going to go with oeuvre because it's funnier and it's a great running joke to, Anyway,
Okay. Well, then I'll just keep correcting you.
That's fine. You do that. That'll add to the gag. You good otherwise?
Yes, although I guess we're going to have a guest spot coming up on a film from 2025 that I loved.
Yes, we're going to be on Movies and Us here in the near future discussing Blue Moon, which you raved about in the fall after we'd seen it, and particularly Ethan Hawke's performance,
which was phenomenal.
Recent stuff that I would recommend, I would still push out that I would recommend Industry if you haven't caught up with that already as far as an HBO show. I am very excited. By the time this episode will come out, we will have had the first episode of season 3 of Shrinking, which, given the enormity and the heaviness of everything going on in geopolitics, to be able to sit down with a show that is just so happy and joyous and giving me that like half an hour, 45 minutes of just pure joy, I'm going to really, really appreciate it coming back. There are several other shows that we have coming back. For me, I don't know why I watch it. It is somehow a conversation piece between my sisters, my mother, and I. And apparently you're the only one in the family that doesn't watch this show. But Bridgerton, because, I like my diversity period drama Netflix romantic shit. That's coming back too. Got The Lincoln Lawyer, which theoretically we didn't have a Dana legal corner on this episode, but for your eventual TikTok series, that's a possible suggestion too. So there's a lot of good TV, and obviously with all of the nominations coming out, if you haven't seen any of the 10 Best Picture films up to this point, any of the shorts, which you and I heavily get into, we love all the shorts if we can. Yes. Just a lot of content out there for everybody to consume that we would definitely recommend.
I watched 4 of the 5 nominees for short animated yesterday. Took me about a half hour, 40 minutes. Several of them were wonderful. There was a couple, the retirement plan came a little too close to home. But yeah, there were several that I enjoyed. I'm going to have a hard time picking which I thought was the best.
So that you don't have to worry about for about another 6 weeks, but that looks like a good spot for the end of this episode. We wish we could chat longer, but we are having an old friend for dinner. We will see you next week. Next week, for our 298th episode, we welcome back 5-time club member, the host and creator of Shea Cinema, and a CLP contributor, Sarah Shea, to discuss the horror classic Dracula from 1931, celebrating its 95th anniversary. Directed by Todd Browning, written by Garrett Fort. Cinematography by Carl Freund, music by Philip Glass, editing by Milton Carruth and Maurice Pivar. Starring Bela Lugosi, David Manners, Helen Chandler, Dwight Fry, and Edward Van Sloan. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, TikTok, or Threads at the handle @GMOPodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.